Today's lab is about the switch selection structure. Okay? Today's lab is about the switch selection structure. Now, if you know what a selection structure is, like already we have talked about the if-else selection structure and the if-else selection structure. Now, a selection structure, it basically selects among many executable paths. So if you have to select between different options, if you have different lines of code to execute, or if you have to do different tasks, so for that purpose you use a selection structure. The selection structure helps you select between different available execution paths. Okay? Based upon a certain condition, you would like to do one thing. Based upon another condition, you would like to do another thing. And based upon another condition, you would like to do something else. For example, we have been talking about this. Say, for example, if I have to determine your grade, okay? So based upon your percentage marks, you will be awarded a different grade. Okay? So if your percentage marks are, say, for example, greater than or equal to 95, you get an A grade. If your percentage marks are, say, between 90 and 95, you get an A minus. Similarly, B plus, B, B minus, C plus, C, C minus, B plus, D, and F grade. For each grade, there is a different condition. Okay? In order to get a particular grade, you have to satisfy a certain condition. So when we want to program such a thing, so we have to award a different grade to each student, say for example. So for that purpose, what we do is we use a selection structure. The selection structure chooses between different paths of execution, and each path is chosen subject to a certain condition. Okay? So we have been using the if-else-if selection structure. Now in this particular lab, we'll talk about another selection structure, that is the switch selection structure. It is exactly the same as the if-else-if selection structure as far as its behavior is concerned. It acts the same way as the if-else-if selection structure, but its syntax is slightly different. So it is different syntax. Some people find this one easy, some people find the if-else-if structure easy. So it's up to you. Now, I was not available last week, but I did post the video from previous years. I hope that might have helped you. Now in this lab, we'll combine the two. Okay? We'll try to combine the two, so this one demo would be helpful in understanding both the switch selection structure as well as the while loop. Okay? So we'll be using the while loop as well as the switch selection structure. Now what are we going to do? We are going to do, we'll try to do at least say three tasks, or three things, or two things for that matter. So first of all, we'll try to simulate the tossing of a coin. Okay, we'll try to simulate the tossing of a coin. Now, computers are extensively used for simulation purposes. Okay? And usually simulation is both the actual simulation of physical phenomenon, and simulation is also at times regarding the outcome of a physical phenomenon. So for example, when you toss a coin, you are likely to get two outputs. Okay? Either you will get heads or tails. Okay? These are the two possible outcomes whenever you toss a coin, and theoretically the probability or possibility of each outcome is 1/2, 50%. There are 50% chances that you'll get a heads and 50% chances that you'll get a tails. Now we call these heads and tails using different names. Say in Pashto we Sherkhat, we call them Sherkhat. I don't know how do they call it in Urdu or in other languages, local languages. But do not get confused. These are just two different names for the two opposite sides of a coin. You can call them any name. The important thing is that whenever you toss a coin, you have two possibilities. And each possibility is equally likely for a fair coin. If the coin is fair, then each outcome is equally likely. Okay, so the possibility of each outcome is 1/2. That is the analytic probability that you calculate. Okay, so if you have two possible outcomes and you want to calculate the possibility of one of these outcomes, so the possibility of one of those outcomes is 1/2, 1/2. Okay? If the number of possible outcomes is 6, for example, if you have a die, chakra, you are playing Ludo, आप Ludo खेल रहे हैं, and for that you have to roll a die. Okay? So the die has 6 possible outcomes, 6 faces. Any face that turns up on top, so that is the outcome of a die roll. So now there you have 6 possible outcomes. What is the probability of each of these outcomes? If we have a fair die, so we have 6 possible outcomes, and the possibility of each one of them is 1/6. Now what is the possibility that we'll get an odd number? Okay? Now this is a different event. So the number of sample points in this event is 3. So if you roll a die, you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are the 6 possible outcomes. Out of these 6 possible outcomes, 3 are odds, 3 are even numbers. So the possibility that you will get an odd number whenever you roll a die, it is 3/6. Because there are 3 faces that are odd faces and there are 3 faces that are even faces. So if you want to calculate the probability of getting an odd number when you roll, so that is all the possible odd outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. Okay? So that is 3/6, 1/2. This is called the analytic probability. Analytic probability is probability that you calculate using a formula, using the axioms and theorems of probability theory. Okay? There is another way of finding out the probability of all these events, of random events. That way is called the frequentist approach. Frequentist approach. What is the frequentist approach? Frequentist approach is, if you have a coin and if you toss that coin 1,000 times, now it is very much possible or probable that you'll get almost 500 times heads and 500 times tails, plus minus 20, 30, whatever. But that is the that would be the outcome of this experiment. Okay? So in a frequentist approach, what do? You perform an experiment a large number of times, and then you look at the outcome. What is the outcome of that experiment? And then you determine or calculate the outcome, and based upon that outcome you can get the probability of each outcome. Okay? Now this is what we are going to do in this particular lab. So the first thing that we do is we will simulate the tossing of a coin. We will simulate the tossing of a coin. So we will write a function, toss or toss coin, and we will specify to that function like how many times do you want to toss the coin, and then that function will toss the coin that many times and it will return us the number of heads and tails that we obtained. And how would we simulate tossing of a coin? Now we can simulate this by using random numbers. Okay? So the tossing of a coin is a random phenomena. You cannot predict the outcome. Okay? You cannot predict the outcome of a single toss of a coin. Like you can be wrong, you can be right, but you can also be wrong. But if you perform like this experiment a large number of times, then you can predict the outcome. Like you can say very safely that if you toss a coin say 1,000 times, so around 500 times plus minus 10 or 20 you'll get heads, and around that many times plus minus 10 or 20 you'll get tails. Okay? So we are going to do the same. We are going to toss a coin and we are going to count how many times did we get the heads and how many times did we get the tails. And while doing so, we are going to use the switch selection structure and the while loop. Okay? We are going to use the switch selection structure and the while loop. So you'll learn both of these things. This is one that we'll use. The other thing that we'll use will be calculating the grades. Okay? The grade points. We'll be calculating the grade points. Okay? So when you take a course, you are given marks. Those marks are converted into some percentage marks. After that, you get a grade. Okay? So once you get a grade, then your semester GPA is calculated. Grade point average. Okay? Now, how is the grade point average calculated? So the grade that you obtain in any course, so it corresponds to some grade points. For example, an A grade corresponds to 4 grade points. So that is the maximum grade points or the maximum GPA that you can get. If a student gets all A's in all the courses, in all the semesters, so he'll be getting a 4.0 GPA. He'll be a 4-pointer. Okay? So that happens very rarely. Very rarely does a person get all A's in all the courses in all semesters. Okay? So if somebody does that, his grade point average, cumulative grade point average would be 4.0. Acha, how do we calculate this grade point average? So what we do is we get the grade, convert it into grade points, multiply that by the credit hours for the course. So that gives us quality points. Now we add all these quality points for all the courses and divide them by the total number of credit hours. That gives us the grade point average. Okay? Acha, so while writing the code, I'll try to explain it. Okay? Now, how does the switch selection structure work? So this is the syntax for the switch selection structure. Okay? Now this is a selection structure. Selection structure means we have to select among different available paths for execution. Okay? And how do we make that selection? So based upon the value of a variable or expression, okay, we determine, or the Octave or the Matlab interpreter, it determines which particular code to execute. If the value of this variable or expression is value 1, then whatever code we have written after value 1, that is executed. If the value of this variable or expression is value 2, then whatever code comes after case value 2, that code is executed. Okay? And if it is value 3, then this particular code is executed. If it is neither value 1 nor value 2 nor value 3, then we have the otherwise option. Okay? So whatever comes after the otherwise option, that is executed. Now let us put this into use. Then you'll be clear about it. Okay? Like, what do we mean by all this? So the first thing that we will do is we will write the toss function. We'll write a Matlab function by the name of toss. What would be the purpose of the toss function? So we'll give it an input, and that input would be simulate the tossing of a coin 1,000 times or 10,000 times or 5,000 times, as many times as we want. Jazakallah. And then it will return the number of heads and tails. Okay, the number of heads and tails. So we are going to write a function. That means we have to start with the function keyword. When you're writing the function, you start with the function keyword, then you specify the output. So here we will have two outputs. Say for example, we'll have heads, tails. How many times did we get heads and how many times did we get tails? So these are two scalar values. These are two scalar values that is going to be the output of this function. So then the assignment operator, then the name of the function. ठीक है? Toss coins. So let's say we want to call this function as toss coins. ठीक है? Or toss coin. Toss coin. So the name of the function is toss coin. The output of the function is two scalar values, heads and tails, and the input to the function is n, the value n. How many times do we want to toss the coin? How many times do we want to toss the coins? Okay? Now when I press the Ctrl plus S buttons, I wanted to save this file, so automatically the name of the file has been chosen as tosscoin.m, which is the name of the function. So you have to make sure that the name of the function and the name of the file, the script file in which you are saving that function, they must be the same. Okay? They must be the same. So let me save it. So now we can have the end keyword here. So this is the toss coin function. Okay? This is the toss coin function. The name of this function is toss coin. The input to this function is n. N is supposed to be a scalar value. N is supposed to be a scalar value. And what is n going to specify? N is going to specify the number of times that you want to toss this coin. That you want to toss this coin. That is what n is going to specify. Okay. What is the output of this function? Its output is two scalar values, heads, which is going to return the number of heads, and tails, which is going to return the number of tails. Okay. Now before we do anything, let's initialize heads and tails to 0. Okay. So heads is equal to tails is equal to 0. So I want to make sure that tails and heads, these two variables, they have the value 0 before we start tossing the coin. Okay? Now how do we simulate the tossing of a coin? Remember, we are not going to physically simulate the tossing of a coin. Okay? Like coin कैसे हवा में उड़ती है और फिर कहाँ तक जाएगी और कैसे फिर नीचे आएगी, फिर जब वो नीचे आएगी तो ठप्पे कितने खाएगी और फाइनली वो किस तरह से किस फेस पे वो लैंड करेगी. We are not going to simulate that. You can also simulate such things as well with computers, but that is going to take a lot of time, a lot of resources. Okay? One version of that you see in computer games. So in computer games, when you are playing computer games or simulations, for example, when you are playing Need for Speed, so there is a physics engine behind the scenes. Okay? There is a complete software which is called the physics engine, which does all the physical calculations, calculates all the velocities, all the like if you are moving across a curve or a corner, so it does all the calculations, like whether you would roll off the corner or whether you would be able to make that turn or something like that. So behind the scenes there is a software, there is a library, a code that is constantly doing calculations related to the physics of that situation. Here we are not going to do that. This is very simple kind of simulation. This is the simulation of the outcome. So whenever you throw a coin, the outcome is either heads or tails. Forget about how it flies and how it lands and how it bounces and how it rolls on the ground and then falls. We are going to ignore all that. We are only going to think about the outcome of this experiment. So whenever you throw a coin, the outcome is always either heads or tails, and that is what we are going to simulate. And how are we going to simulate that? So we are going to simulate it with random numbers. Okay? So we have been using this random function, random integer. Okay? So we are going to ask this function to
say, what is the first value? What does the first value specify? Maximum value. What is the minimum value? It's also 1. Okay? So you can either specify 0 or 1, or you can specify 1, 2. If I write 2 here, then I can have value between 1 and 2. Okay? Now if I specify that the maximum value is 2, then I'm going to have either 1 or 2 as the outcome of this function. Say for example, let us assume if we get 1, we'll say we've got a heads, and if we get 2, we'll say we've got a tails. We have only 2 possible outcomes, 1 or 2. So it's up to you whether you call 1 as heads or 2 as heads, or 1 as tails or 2 as tails. It's up to you. So you can decide like which one is heads and which one is tails. But if we use the rand integer function like this, that the maximum value is 2 and we are generating a scalar value 1 by 1, so we are going to get either 1 or 2. Then it's up to you to decide whether 1 represents heads or 2 represents heads. Okay? So that is up to you. So this is how we are going to do things. Okay? So what are we going to do? We are going to call the rand integer function with these parameters. The maximum value is 2 and we want a scalar value 1 by 1, and depending upon the outcome, whether it is 1 or 2, we are going to increment either heads or tails. Okay? So how would the switch selection structure do it? So this is how we can do it using the switch selection structure. So based upon, this is how the switch selection structure works. Okay? You start with the keyword switch and you end with the keyword end. Okay? So the switch selection starts here and it ends here. Okay? And it is a selection structure. Selection structure se murad, okay, it is going to select among the available paths of execution. Okay, which path do I have to execute? And how is it going to select? It is going to select based upon the value of a variable or an expression. So we are going to call the rand integer function with these parameters. The maximum value is 2, the minimum value is 1, so it is going to generate either 1 or 2, and we want a scalar value. Okay? So we are calling this function rand integer. The maximum value is 2 and we are generating a scalar value. So this function call is going to result in either 1 or 2, as we have seen here. When you execute this function, you get either 1 or 2. Okay? That is what you get. You execute it again and again, and this is what you are going to get, 1 or 2, 1 or 2. Now based upon the value of this function, the switch selection structure is going to decide what to do. Okay? Now we are going to tell what to do. Okay? How? So we are going to say if the outcome is 1, if the outcome is 1, you will do what is it going to do? It is going to increment heads. Okay? It is going to increment heads. And if the outcome is 2, case 2, okay? This is the expression. This expression is going to result in 2 possible values, 1 or 2. Based upon the value of this expression, of this function, we are going to decide what to do. Now if the value is 1, we are going to increment the variable heads. If the value is 2, we are going to increment the variable tails. We are going to increment the variable tails. Okay? There is no other possibility. But just in case, okay? If there is any other possibility, you can include that in otherwise. Okay? So we have case 1, possibility 1, then 2, and then otherwise. For any other value that we have not mentioned here as a case, this particular case otherwise would be executed. Okay? Now this is not possible here. Okay? So we are going to display a message. This was an unlikely outcome. Okay? That is what we want to do. Okay, so do you understand how this function is going to act? Okay? Now we'll look at its execution, step-by-step execution. We'll look at that, but you should know how the switch selection structure works. Okay? The switch selection structure, it is a selection structure. Selection structure means it selects among different instructions or statements which statement is going to execute. That is what it does. Okay? How does it make the selection? It makes the selection based upon the value of a variable or a function or an expression. So we can have a formula here, we can have a variable here, or we can have an expression like, or a function call here. We can have anything here. But you should know like what are the possible values of whatever we have here. So based upon the values of this function or variable or expression, you are going to decide what to do. Now if the value of this function is 1, we want to increment the variable heads. If the value of this function is 2, we want to increment the variable tails. Okay? And if it's neither 1 nor 2, then we want to display this message. Okay? Now let's see how this function is going to act. How this function is going to perform or act or behave. We want to do it in a step-by-step manner, so I'll insert a breakpoint here and I'll call this function. I'll call this function from the command window. So we are going to say toss coin and I'm going to give it the value 100. We are not using the value 100 in any case. Okay? Now let's get here. So now we are executing the toss coin function in a step-by-step manner. Okay? So here we are at the breakpoint. So the first thing that we are going to do is we are going to press F11. So we are going to move to the next statement, and if you see we have the heads and tails variables here, both initialized to the value 0. Okay? Now what are we going to do? We are going to execute this statement. Okay? When this statement is executed, this function would be executed, the rand_i function. So it will generate a random value between 1 and 2, sorry. So we'll get either 1 or 2. Okay? If we get 1, so we'll jump here. If we get 2, we'll jump here. Okay? That you'll see. So if I press F11, we have entered the rand integer function. Okay, so let's execute it. Acha, let's do it again. Toss coin, then enter here. Okay, so we are going to execute this statement. Now I'm going to press the F10 key. Okay? When I press the F11 key, so it takes me inside the rand integer function. Okay? It steps into the rand integer function. So we are going to use the F10 option. F10 is step, it is not step in. Okay? Okay, so press the F10 key. So the rand integer function, it generated a 2. That's why we are at case 2. Okay? toggle point है, call the function, go to the command window. Acha, now I am going to make one small change to this code. I am going to use the variable x, ठीक है, and x is equal to this thing, and then I am going to switch on the basis of x. Okay, so I've made one small change to this code. I'm calling the rand integer function, and whatever its outcome is, I'm saving that in the variable x. Then I'm switching on the basis of the value of x. Okay? So this way we'll know okay, what is x and which particular case is going to execute. Okay? That is why I'm doing it. Now let's call this function again. This is how you do it. Okay? Let us call this function again, toss coin 100 say. So now we are here. Okay, now let me press F10. So heads and tails, they are both equal to 0. Now x is equal to rand I 2 comma 1. So we'll generate a random scalar value between 1 and 2. Now what is the value of x? It is 2. So now we are going to switch on the basis of x. So x is equal to 2, so case 2 is going to be executed. Okay? Plus plus tails, this part is going to be executed. So when I press F10 again, we jump straight to whatever comes after case 2, which is this statement at line number 8. Okay? So when I press F10 again, tails is incremented. The variable tails is incremented, and then we go out of this function, the switch structure. Okay? So this particular switch structure, Batani please, Batani, Talha, Zaib or Talha Saeed, please do not talk. Okay? Your attention should be here. This is how you insert a breakpoint. Okay? Wherever you want to insert a breakpoint, you can select that line or click on that line wherever your cursor is, and then press this button. See this button, toggle breakpoint. This is a toggle switch. Toggle switch se murad, you press it once, on हो जाएगा, press it again, off हो जाएगा. ठीक है? So ये on off होता है. Whenever you have inserted a breakpoint, that means कि जब आप इस प्रोग्राम को रन करेंगे, ठीक है, इस फंक्शन को रन करेंगे, एग्जीक्यूशन यहाँ पे रुक जाएगी, इस ब्रेक पॉइंट पे एग्जीक्यूशन रुक जाएगी, उसके बाद फिर आप स्टेप बाय स्टेप एग्जीक्यूशन कर सकते हैं. ठीक है? नाउ दिस इज अ फंक्शन, सो यू कैन नॉट एग्जीक्यूट इट हियर फ्रॉम द रन मेन्यू, यू हैव टू कॉल इट फ्रॉम द कमांड विंडो बाय इट्स नेम. आप इसके नाम से इसको कॉल करेंगे. सो लेट मी क्विट दिस डीबग मोड. तो अब इस फंक्शन को कॉल करना है. सो यू हैव टू कॉल इट फ्रॉम द कमांड विंडो यूजिंग इट्स नेम एंड विद एन आर्गुमेंट. जब आप इसको कॉल करते हैं तो यू एंटर द डीबग मोड. ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे आपकी एग्जीक्यूशन रुक जाती है जहाँ पे आपने ब्रेक पॉइंट इंसर्ट किया है. येलो एरो नजर नहीं आ रहा आपको? आप जाएं ना कमांड विंडो में, वहां से इस फंक्शन को कॉल करें दोबारा से, नाम सही है, एंटर, एंड अनडिफाइंड नियर लाइन 1, जाएं फंक्शन में, there is a space between toss and coin. Why did you insert space character between? Save it. नहीं, रन नहीं करना. Go again to the command window. Call the toss coin function again. You don't need to type it again and again, so you can use the up and down arrow.
कॉपी दिस, ये जो नाम लिखा हुआ है इसको कॉपी करो and paste it on the command window. n की जगह provide some value and undefined here line 1 this I will call
function. और कोई मिस्टेक तो नहीं की? Now there are small, like if you make very small or trivial mistakes that you don't even consider as mistakes. For example, you cannot have a space character within the name. This is not a valid name. Toss space coin. This is an invalid name. ये गलत नाम है. Your code won't execute. ठीक है? You cannot have a space here, space character within the name. Similarly, when you use the function keyword, then you should have a space character and then you should have these arguments. ठीक है? So if you don't do it, then you will have problems और फिर आप कहेंगे कि ये क्यों नहीं execute कर रहा. अच्छा, एक second. So we'll get to your problems later on. Now let me finish. This particular code, let me get out of the, okay, so we are out of it, I guess. Now this particular code, if you look at it, it only tosses the coin once. ठीक है? It only tosses the coin once. So it tosses the coin once and it looks at the outcome and it does something appropriate as required by the outcome. ठीक है? अगर outcome 1 है तो ये heads को increment करता है, अगर 2 है तो tails को increment करता है, and that's it. And it does that using the switch selection structure. ठीक है? So the one purpose was that you should know how to use the switch selection structure. So this is how you use the switch selection structure. This is a selection structure, means it helps you select among different statements to execute. Like which statement do you want to execute? So it helps you do that. And you make the selection based upon the value of some variable or some expression. ठीक है? So you make that decision based upon the value of some variable. So this is how you do it. Switch, and then the variable based upon the value of which you want to make some decision, and then all the possible cases. ठीक है? So you have case 1, if the value of this variable is 1, then if its value is 2, and then if its value is neither 1 nor 2. ठीक है? So you always use the switch selection structure in all those situations where you have a fixed number of possibilities. Like you know that the possible values for this variable can be either 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6. No other possible values than that. ठीक है? So it cannot be used in situations where you do not know what is going to be the value of this variable or what are the possible values of this variable. So if there are situations wherein you are interested only in certain values of a variable and doing something when those values occur, then you can use the switch selection structure. Now this particular code is good enough for tossing a coin only once. It is good enough for tossing a coin only once. How do you make it toss a coin more than once? ठीक है? So for that you need to use loops. ठीक है? So we have talked about the for loop. We have also talked about the while loop. ठीक है? So we are going to use the while loop here. Now how does the while loop work? ठीक है? So this is how the while loop works. You start with the keyword while, okay? Then you specify a condition. You specify a condition. As far as or as long as this condition is true, so this while loop is going to execute. Which while loop? A while loop always starts with the keyword while and it ends with the keyword end. So whatever is between this while keyword and this end keyword, this is the body of the while loop. And this body will execute as long as this condition which we'll specify here is true. Okay? So as long as this condition is true, we have not specified the condition yet, this while loop is going to execute. Okay? So let's specify the condition. What is the condition? Now we want this loop to execute a certain number of times. For that we need a loop counter. For that we need a loop counter to count like how many times this loop has executed. So let's use the variable counter. Okay? So counter is equal to 0 initially. Initially counter is equal to 0. We want this loop to execute n times. We want this loop to execute n times. Okay? So while counter is less than n, while counter is less than n, we want this code to execute. We want to toss a coin, look at the outcome, increment either the heads variable or the tails variable based upon the outcome, and then we want to repeat this process again and again. How many times? N times. Okay? How are we going to do that? We are going to do that using a while loop. How does the while loop work? So it starts with the keyword while, it ends with the keyword end, and then you specify some condition for the while loop. As long as this condition is true, this while loop will execute. Okay? This while loop will execute. Now this is the condition. The condition is while the loop counter is less than n. So we want the coin to toss. We want to toss the coin 100 times. So while this loop counter is less than say n, which is say 100, we want this loop to repeat again and again. Okay? So counter is a variable that basically keeps count of how many times the while loop has executed. So we initialize it with the value 0. Then once the while loop has executed, we should increment the counter, okay, to specify that the loop counter has executed once. So once the loop has executed, the while loop has executed once, we increment the loop counter. So this basically keeps track of how many times the loop has executed. Okay? Now while this counter is less than n, we want this loop to execute. Now let's see how this code would execute. Okay? So we are inserting a breakpoint here, and I'm going to call this function toss coin, and we are going to toss the coin 10 times. Okay? Okay, so when we call this function, we enter the debug mode, and now we'll go step by step. Okay? So first of all, we initialize the variables heads and tails to 0. ठीक है, दोनों 0 हो गए. Then we initialize the loop counter to 0. किधर गया loop counter? Counter is equal to 0. Okay, so now we are going to टेस्ट दिस कंडीशन while counter is less than n. ठीक है, आई कैन नॉट सी द काउंटर, काउंटर क्यों नजर नहीं आ रहा? Okay, so let's see if this code runs fine or not. So counter की value जो है it should be equal to 0 while counter is less than n, n की value हमारे पास 10 है, so this condition should be true. ठीक है, so counter is less than n, the condition is true, और x हमारे पास उसकी value है 2. ठीक है, ये तो ज़रा ठीक काम नहीं कर रहा. लेट मी स्टॉप दिस सेशन एंड लेट अस क्लियर एंड ओके, सो लेट मी कॉल दिस फंक्शन अगेन, टॉस कॉइन फंक्शन. So let me call the toss coin function again. ठीक है, so here we are. ठीक है, यहाँ पे first of all let's execute this statement. So heads is equal to tails is equal to 0, then counter is equal to 0. ठीक है, so now we have the counter variable और उसकी value 0 है. अच्छा जी, then while counter is less than n, so counter is 0 and 0 is less than 10, n की value 10 है, so this condition is true. When this condition is true, we'll enter the while loop. ठीक है, so when we enter the while loop, यहाँ पे अब next statement है वो x की value generate होगी, random value. Let's generate x. So x की value है 2. Now we have to switch on the basis of the value of x. Since x की value 2 है, so we'll go to case 2 और टेल्स वेरिएबल को इंक्रीमेंट कर देंगे. ठीक है, देन वी गेट आउट ऑफ द स्विच स्ट्रक्चर और हम लूप काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट कर देते हैं. सो द लूप काउंटर बिकम्स 1. नाउ 1 इज लेस देन 10. ठीक है, सो वी आर अगेन इनसाइड द व्हाइल लूप और हम फिर से x की रैंडम वैल्यू जनरेट करते हैं. ठीक है, दिस टाइम x की वैल्यू है again it is 2. ठीक है, so we switch on the basis of x, we increment the tails variable, then we increment the loop counter. The loop counter becomes 2. 2 is less than 10, so we are again inside the while loop. फिर हम random value generate करते हैं, x again turns out to be 2. केस 2 की तरफ हम जाते हैं, टेल्स को इंक्रीमेंट किया, फिर लूप काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट किया, इट इज 3. व्हेन यू प्रेस F10 अगेन 3 इज लेस देन 10, तो आप फिर वाइल लूप में होंगे. फिर x की वैल्यू जनरेट की, दिस टाइम वी हैव 1, तो केस 1 हेड्स इंक्रीमेंट हुआ, फिर काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट किया, 4, 4 इज लेस देन 10, सो वी आर इनसाइड द वाइल लूप. देन अगेन जनरेट रैंडम वैल्यू, इट इज 1, सो केस 1 हेड्स को इंक्रीमेंट किया, काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट किया, 5, 5 इज लेस देन 10, सो वी आर इनसाइड द लूप. सो यू हैव दिस प्रोसेस इज रिपीटेड व्हाइल दिस कंडीशन इज ट्रू. ठीक है, सो लेट्स गेट टू 9 and 10. ठीक है, नाउ द लूप काउंटर इज 10. 10 is not less than 10. 10 is equal to 10. So this condition would be false. When this condition is false, so you will get out of this function. ठीक है, you'll get out of this function. और हमारे पास 4 मरतबा heads आया, 6 मरतबा tails आया. ठीक है. So we are out of this function. The answer that we get is only 4. समझ आई इस चीज की? ठीक है, समझें? पिक्चर लेके क्या करेंगे? इसकी तो पूरी वीडियो रिकॉर्ड हो रही है. द पॉइंट इज यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड इट. ठीक है. So this what we demonstrated here was the execution of the toss coin function 10 times, not once, but inside the function the loop executed 10 times. So it simulated the 10 tosses of a coin. This function simulated 10 tosses of a coin. ठीक है. Now let us remove the breakpoint and let us call this function. अब इस function को call करते हैं. ठीक है. So let me declare these variables tails, heads, and we are going to toss the coin 1000 times. ठीक है. तो अब हम क्या कर रहे हैं? I am calling the toss coin function and I am asking it to simulate 1000 tosses of the coin. I am asking this function to simulate 1000 tosses of a coin. ठीक है. तो कैसे सिमुलेट करता है? तो this function would be called and it would return 2 values, heads and tails, और उसको हम यहाँ पे स्टोर कर रहे हैं, tails and heads. ये हमारे पास heads and tails रिटर्न कर रहा है. So इसको उसी नाम उसमें स्टोर कर लेते हैं. ठीक है. heads, sorry, tails, or you can use the variables h and t. ठीक है. So the variable h will store the number of heads, t will store the number of tails. So when we call this function, so we get these values. H is equal to 494, t is equal to 506. 494 मरतबा heads आया, 506 मरतबा tails आया. So ये around plus minus 20%, ठीक है, या 10%. 10% तो 500 का 10% is 50. ठीक है. वो ऐसा ही है ना? अच्छा. सो प्लस माइनस 10% नहीं, ये तो कम, यूजुअली उससे कम होता है, प्लस माइनस 1%. ठीक है, या उससे भी कम. इसमें वो डिविएशन होता है. ठीक है. यू कॉल इट अगेन एंड अगेन, ये कुछ इस किस्म की वैल्यूज आपके पास आएंगी. सो 490, 510, 510, 490, ये उसकी रेंज है, प्लस माइनस 10. अच्छा जी, जस्ट अ सेकेंड. जिन लोगों का कोड ये वाला नहीं चल रहा, अच्छा, so here again we'll write another function, and this time the function would be get grade points. इस function का नाम क्या होगा? Get grade points. So we are going to create or write a function, और ये function हमें एक ही value output में देगा, that would be grade points. ठीक है. So this function would give us only one output. That output would be grade points. ठीक है. अच्छा, और grade points हमने कैसे कैलकुलेट करने? फंक्शन का नाम होगा get grade points. I guess we have a similar function already. अच्छा, हमारे पास ऑलरेडी इस नाम का फंक्शन है. ठीक है. So let me rename it as get grade points 2. ठीक है. अच्छा, इसको एक इनपुट आएगी, that would be the grade. नाउ अटेंशन प्लीज, अटेंशन, बातें नहीं प्लीज। देखें आप यहाँ पे गौर से नहीं सुनते, फिर आप वही मिस्टेक्स वहाँ पे बाद में करते रहते हैं। पहली मिस्टेक, बहुत सारे लोगों ने, मैंने आपसे 20 मरतबा कहा है जब भी हमने फंक्शंस की डिस्कशन की है कि फंक्शन का नाम और जिस फाइल में फंक्शन को आप स्टोर करना चाह रहे हैं, सेव करना चाह रहे हैं, उसका नाम, दे मस्ट बी एग्जैक्टली द सेम। एंड व्हेन वी से द टर्म एग्जैक्टली द सेम, दैट मीन्स के ऑक्टेव या मैटलैब इज केस सेंसिटिव लैंग्वेज, सो उसमें स्मॉल एस और कैपिटल एस में देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, स्मॉल जी और कैपिटल जी में देयर इज अ डिफरेंस, ठीक है। तो आपने नाम एग्जैक्टली सेम रखना है, और उसका तरीक़ाकार बड़ा आसान है। जब आप फंक्शन लिखना चाहते हैं अपने प्रोग्राम में, अपने स्क्रिप्ट फाइल में, सो यू राइट द फंक्शन के फंक्शन और फंक्शन का नाम, फिर उसकी जो वैल्यू वो रिटर्न कर रहा है और जो उसको आर्गुमेंट चाहिए, यू राइट दिस इंफॉर्मेशन, और फिर जैसे आप सेव फाइल का बटन प्रेस करते हैं, ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे ऑटोमेटिकली, वैसे लेट मी चेक, इफ आई डू Ctrl+S, so this name should automatically appear here। ये जो फंक्शन का नाम है ना, when you do it the first time, बीच में मैंने कैंसिल किया था शायद इसलिए ये दोबारा से नहीं आ रहा, but if you write all this information and you press Ctrl+S the very first time, तो यहाँ पे आपका फाइल नेम ऑटोमेटिकली आया होता है, वो फंक्शन का नाम। लेकिन अगर नहीं भी आया तो फाइल का नाम और फंक्शन का नाम एग्जैक्टली सेम होना चाहिए। तो फंक्शन का नाम है GET_GRADE_POINTS2, गेट ग्रेड पॉइंट्स 2, ठीक है, ये फंक्शन का नाम है। तो आपने इसी नाम के साथ, और आपने कैपिटल लेटर्स और स्मॉल लेटर्स दोनों को मैच करना है, कौन सा स्मॉल है कौन सा कैपिटल है। एक भी मिसमैच हो गई तो आपके फाइल का नाम गलत हो जाएगा, फिर आपका फंक्शन एग्जीक्यूट नहीं होगा, ठीक है। सो यू हैव टू मेक श्योर कि ये जो नाम यहाँ पे है और ये जो फंक्शन का नाम है, ये दोनों एग्जैक्टली सेम है, ठीक है। देन यू शुड प्रेस द सेव बटन। अब ये फंक्शन क्या करेगा, इसको इनपुट में एक ग्रेड मिलेगा, ग्रेड वुड बी अ लेटर ग्रेड, A माइनस, B प्लस, बेस्ड अपॉन द लेटर ग्रेड ये ग्रेड पॉइंट्स रिटर्न करेगा या कैलकुलेट करेगा, ठीक है, सही है। अच्छा, वो होगा किस तरह, सो हमारे पास ग्रेड आएगा इस वेरिएबल में, ग्रेड में, एंड बेस्ड अपॉन द ग्रेड वी हैव टू डिटरमिन कि ग्रेड पॉइंट्स कितने होंगे, ठीक है। सो ये बड़ा सिंपल सा फंक्शन है, ठीक है। हमने क्या करना है, बेस्ड अपॉन द ग्रेड वी हैव टू डिसाइड कि ग्रेड पॉइंट्स क्या होंगे। बेस्ड अपॉन द ग्रेड वी हैव टू डिसाइड कि ग्रेड पॉइंट्स क्या होंगे। सो दैट्स व्हाई स्विच, एंड देन स्विच ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ व्हाट, स्विच ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ ग्रेड। ये जो हमारे पास इनपुट आ रहा है, इसकी बेसिस पे हमने डिटरमिन करना है कि ग्रेड पॉइंट्स क्या होंगे, ठीक है। तो पॉसिबिलिटीज क्या हो सकती हैं, ग्रेड कैन बी A, a student can have the grade A। जब ग्रेड A होगा तो ग्रेड पॉइंट्स फिर क्या होंगे, ग्रेड पॉइंट्स होंगे 4.0, 4, ठीक है। दूसरी पॉसिबिलिटी क्या हो सकती है, मैं इसको कॉपी कर रहा हूं और फिर मैं पेस्ट करता जाऊंगा ताकि गलती की गुंजाइश बहुत कम हो। ग्रेड कैन बी A माइनस, then the grade points would be 3.67, 0.33 का फर्क आता है, ठीक है। then grade can be B plus, so grade points होंगे 3.33, then grade can be B, तब ग्रेड पॉइंट्स होंगे 3.0, देन वी कैन हैव ग्रेड इक्वल टू B माइनस, तब ग्रेड पॉइंट्स होंगे 2.67, अच्छा, मैं बाकी पॉसिबिलिटीज भी पेस्ट कर देता हूँ. दिस वुड बी C प्लस, C माइनस, D प्लस, सॉरी, D and then otherwise. अच्छा जी, तो B प्लस के बाद वी है B माइनस के बाद वी हैव C प्लस. C प्लस के जो ग्रेड पॉइंट्स हैं दोज आर 2.33. देन वी हैव C के जो ग्रेड पॉइंट्स है दैट इज 2. देन वी हैव C माइनस, उसके हैं 1.67. देन वी हैव D प्लस, उसके हैं 1.33. देन वी हैव D, उसके हैं 1. अदर देन दैट, इफ द ग्रेड इज F और W और I और whatever, उसके ग्रेड पॉइंट्स जो हैं वो 0 हैं. ठीक है. सो दिस इज हाउ द गेट ग्रेड पॉइंट्स फंक्शन विल वर्क. ठीक है, गेट ग्रेड पॉइंट्स फंक्शन इस तरीके से काम करेगा. सो बेस्ड अपॉन के ग्रेड की वैल्यू क्या है वो डिटरमिन करेगा कि ग्रेड पॉइंट्स क्या होंगे. ठीक है. सो लेट्स यूज दिस फंक्शन. यहाँ पे मैं एक ब्रेक पॉइंट इंसर्ट कर देता हूँ एंड लेट अस कॉल दिस फंक्शन. सो द फंक्शन इज गेट ग्रेड पॉइंट्स 2. मैंने इसको 2 का नाम इसलिए दिया है कि ऑलरेडी आई हैव गेट ग्रेड पॉइंट्स के नाम से एक फंक्शन ऑलरेडी मेरे पास इस डायरेक्टरी में मौजूद है, तो मैंने इसलिए इसको 2 का नाम दिया. सो लेट्स फाइंड आउट कि अगर किसी स्टूडेंट का ग्रेड हो B माइनस तो उसके ग्रेड पॉइंट्स क्या होंगे. ठीक है. सो लेट अस कॉल दिस फंक्शन विद द वैल्यू फॉर ग्रेड एज B माइनस. तो जब हम इसको कॉल करते हैं सो ग्रेड की वैल्यू क्या है B माइनस. सो B माइनस यहाँ पे पड़ा हुआ है. ठीक है. सो इट शुड जंप टू दिस स्टेटमेंट, लाइन नंबर 12. जब मैं F10 प्रेस करूं सो इट शुड जंप टू लाइन नंबर 12 और वहीं पे वो आया. एंड देन इट असाइंस ग्रेड पॉइंट्स 2.67. ठीक है. सो यहाँ आपको आंसर मिलेगा 2.67. अगर ग्रेड B माइनस है तो ग्रेड पॉइंट्स जो हैं वो 2.67. लेट्स कॉल अनदर फंक्शन. से वी हैव से C प्लस और C माइनस से. सो वी आर हियर. जो वेरिएबल ग्रेड है उसकी वैल्यू है C माइनस. सो द स्विच स्ट्रक्चर विल डिसाइड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ द वैल्यू ऑफ ग्रेड. ग्रेड की वैल्यू है C माइनस, तो ये देखेगा कि डू आई हैव अ केस फॉर C माइनस. सो यस इट हैज. तो ये स्ट्रेट अवे यहाँ लाइन नंबर 18 पे जंप कर जाएगा. व्हेन वी प्रेस F10 सो इट विल जंप टू लाइन नंबर 18 और ग्रेड पॉइंट्स को वैल्यू असाइन हो जाएगी 1.67. सो ग्रेड पॉइंट्स को वैल्यू असाइन हुई 1.67. ठीक है. So similarly, like we can get rid of this breakpoint and we can call this function for different grades. Say we have A. So A के लिए 4 हैं grade points. A minus के लिए 3.67. Say for example F. अगर स्टूडेंट F ग्रेड है उसका तो इट शुड बी 0. अदरवाइज का जो केस है वो एग्जीक्यूट होगा. ठीक है. F जो है इट इज नॉट अमंग दीज लिस्टेड केसेस, तो उसके लिए जो अदरवाइज का जो केस है ये एग्जीक्यूट होगा. ठीक है. इसकी समझ आ गई. से स्टूडेंट हैज कोई गलत ग्रेड हम एंटर कर देते हैं RW. ठीक है. सो अगेन उसके ग्रेड पॉइंट्स हैं 0. इज दिस क्लियर? ठीक है. Okay, so I hope like the switch selection structure and the while loop, like they are clear to you. ठीक है? Now there is one thing that I want to talk about the while loop. One more thing. ठीक है? This is say lab 9 June. अच्छा जी. Now there is one thing that I want to talk about the while loop. Now you know how to use this form of the while loop. ठीक है? So you have, say for example, let me use the clear way, and then say we have the loop counter and counter की value है हमारे पास 0. अच्छा, फिर हम कहते हैं while counter is less than 5. ठीक है? Do this. ठीक है, हम क्या करना चाहते हैं? We want to display something. Display executing a while loop. And then we have plus plus counter. We are implementing the loop counter. अच्छा, attention please. बातें ना करें, ठीक है? Now this is a simple while loop. कितनी मरतबा एग्जीक्यूट होगा ये? कितनी मरतबा एग्जीक्यूट? I want a crisp answer. Less than 5 is not a good enough answer. जी, 5 times. This loop will be executed 5 times. Why? Because the loop counter starts from 0. तो 0 के लिए 0 is less than 5, 1 is less than 5, 2 is less than 5, 3 is less than 5, 4 is less than 5. When it becomes 5, when the loop counter becomes 5, 5 is not less than 5, the condition would become false, और फिर आप जो है ये इसकी execution बंद हो जाएगी. So this loop will be, हाँ जी, in its current form, this loop will execute 5 times. So you will see this message executing a while loop 5 times. 5 मरतबा आपको ये मैसेज नजर आएगा. 1 2 3 4 5. ठीक है? समझ आ गई इसकी? अच्छा. Now if the condition is like this, while counter is greater than 5, I have done nothing, just change the condition. While counter is greater than 5, अब कितनी मरतबा ये लूप एग्जीक्यूट होगी? जी, इमाद, कितनी मरतबा ये लूप एग्जीक्यूट होगी? नहीं एग्जीक्यूट होगी. ये लूप 0 टाइम्स एग्जीक्यूट होगी. वाई? काउंटर की वैल्यू 0 है और कंडीशन ये है कि जब काउंटर 5 से बड़ा हो, जब काउंटर 5 से बड़ा हो तब आपने इस लूप को एग्जीक्यूट करना है. सो द कंडीशन इज फॉल्स ऑलरेडी बिफोर यू इवन एंटर द लूप. द कंडीशन इज फॉल्स, सो दिस लूप विल नॉट एग्जीक्यूट. ये मैसेज आपको प्रिंट होता हुआ नजर नहीं आएगा. इसको आप एग्जीक्यूट करें इस प्रोग्राम को, कुछ भी प्रिंट नहीं होगा. ठीक है? इसका मतलब यह है कि फॉर अ while लूप टू एग्जीक्यूट एटलीस्ट वंस द कंडीशन मस्ट बी ट्रू बिफोर यू एंटर द लूप. बाद में अगर फॉल्स होता है तो ठीक है, लेकिन लूप में एंटर होने से पहले कंडीशन का ट्रू होना जरूरी है. ठीक है? अच्छा, अब मैं थोड़ा सा इसमें चेंज करूंगा. ठीक है? इस while लूप को, कंडीशन को मैं बिल्कुल यही रखूंगा. अब you know कि with this condition this loop does not execute. With this condition this loop does not execute. ठीक है? अगर आपको यकीन नहीं आता, इसको फिर से एग्जीक्यूट करने की कोशिश करते हैं. You don't see any output. ठीक है? पहले आपको ये आउटपुट नजर आती थी जब कंडीशन ये वाली थी, while counter is less than 5, आपको ये वाली आउटपुट नजर आती थी, एग्जीक्यूटिंग अ while loop, एग्जीक्यूटिंग अ while. फिर हमने कंडीशन को चेंज कर दिया okay, while counter is greater than 5. Now counter is 0. 0 is not greater than 5. So this condition is false. So now you don't see any output on the screen. कुछ भी नजर नहीं आता. Why? Because जो स्टेटमेंट आउटपुट जनरेट करती है वो एग्जीक्यूट ही नहीं होता. वो विद इन द वाइल लूप है, तो वाइल लूप में आप एंटर ही नहीं होते. ठीक है, तो आपको पता है कि विद दिस कंडीशन दिस वाइल लूप डज नॉट एग्जीक्यूट. अब मैंने थोड़ा सा इसको चेंज करना है. ठीक है, मैं इस वाइल और कंडीशन को यहाँ पे नीचे लेके आ रहा हूँ. इसको मैं कट कर देता हूँ एंड आई पेस्ट इट हियर. ठीक है, सो वाइल counter is greater than 5, the condition is here, और यहाँ पे I use the keyword do. ठीक है, so now it becomes the do while loop. Do while, it becomes the do while loop. ठीक है, it is by and large the same while loop, but थोड़ा सा फर्क आ गया है. फर्क क्या है कि कंडीशन अब while की बॉडी के नीचे है. ठीक है, उससे फर्क ये पड़ता है कि ये जो लूप है इट विल एग्जीक्यूट एटलीस्ट वंस. कंडीशन वही है. इस कंडीशन के साथ ये पहले एग्जीक्यूट नहीं होता था. जब वाइल ऊपर होता था और नीचे एंड का कीवर्ड हम यूज करते थे, द सिंपल वाइल लूप. अब हमने इसको डू वाइल लूप बना दिया, तो इट विल एग्जीक्यूट एटलीस्ट वंस. क्यों? क्योंकि डू वाइल लूप यहां से शुरू होता है. यहां पे आप कोई कंडीशन नहीं चेक करते. यहाँ पे सिंपली आप ये लाइन एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं तो आपके पास एग्जीक्यूटिंग अ वाइल लूप प्रिंट होता हुआ नजर आएगा. फिर आप काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट करते हैं तो काउंटर 0 से 1 हो जाएगा. फिर आप कंडीशन चेक करते हैं कि इज द काउंटर ग्रेटर देन 5. सो 1 इज नॉट ग्रेटर देन 5, कंडीशन इज फॉल्स. तो आप फिर वापस नहीं जाते. ठीक है, वापस आप इसको एग्जीक्यूट नहीं करते, लेकिन एक मरतबा एग्जीक्यूट हो जाता है. ठीक है, आप अगर इसको रन करें, so this is syntax error. Near line 8. अच्छा, so we have to put the semicolon. ठीक है, नहीं, no, you don't need end. Do while. एक सेकेंड, हमारे पास do while. Just a second, let me refer back to some reference material. ठीक है, just a second. Attention please. I guess we don't have ये मैं आजकल C भी पढ़ा रहा हूँ, तो शायद I thought कि यहाँ पे भी वो है. We have the simple while loop. ठीक है, we don't have the do while variant, so do not worry about the do while variant. But in some languages, say in C, C++, the while loop, it comes in these two variants. One is the simple while loop and the other is the do while variant. In Octave we only have, or in Matlab we only have this version of the while loop. ठीक है, it starts with the keyword while, you specify some condition, and then you have the keyword end. ठीक है, so here you specify the condition. As long as this condition is true, this while loop will be executed. This is the body of the while loop. So any code within this while and end keyword, this code will be repeatedly executed as long as this condition is true. And this condition must be true if you want this loop to be executed at least once. If this condition is false, this loop will never be executed. and you should modify the loop counter in such a way so that you make this condition false at some point in the near future. ऐसा ना हो कि ये condition कभी false हो ही ना. For example, if the condition is like this: while counter is greater than or equal to 0 plus plus counter. ठीक है. Now condition क्या है कि अगर काउंटर 0 हो या 0 से बढ़ के हो तो उसकी इनिशियल वैल्यू 0 है, कंडीशन इज ट्रू, यू विल एंटर द लूप और फिर हम काउंटर को इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं, सो इट विल ऑलवेज बी ग्रेटर देन 0. सो दिस वुड बी एन इन्फिनिट लूप. ये एक इन्फिनिट लूप होगा, ये चलता जाएगा चलता जाएगा चलता जाएगा. ठीक है. सो यू शुड ऑलवेज अवॉइड सच सिचुएशन, सच लूप्स. सो कंडीशन और लूप काउंटर की जो अपडेट करना है वो ऐसा हो कि this condition should become false at some point in time. For example, if the initial value of the counter is say for example, अगर आपने ये condition रखनी है कि while counter is greater than or equal to 0, तो फिर you should have a higher value for the counter, initial value for the counter, and the condition ये जो update करना है it should be in the opposite direction. तो आपने हायर काउंटर वैल्यू से, इनिशियल वैल्यू से स्टार्ट लिया और आप लूप के अंदर उसको डेक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं. तो ये लूप आप तब तक चाह रहे हैं कि एग्जीक्यूट हो जब तक काउंटर 0 से बढ़ के हो या उसके बराबर हो. ठीक है. सो इट विल बी एग्जीक्यूटेड से 11 टाइम्स, 11 मरतबा ये लूप आपका से एग्जीक्यूट होगा. ठीक है. सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द व्हाइल लूप एंड दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द स्विच सिलेक्शन स्ट्रक्चर. And again you can nest the switch selection structure within the while loop or the while loop within the switch selection structure or one while loop within another while loop within another while loop. तो nesting जो है वो किसी भी लेवल की हो सकती है. ठीक है. तो आपको अगर याद हो जो while loop है उसके जो टास्क है ना, उसमें आपसे कहा गया था कि write the is prime function. ठीक है. इस प्राइम फंक्शन क्या करता है, वो आपको बताता है कि कोई नंबर प्राइम नंबर है या नहीं, एंड देन यूज दिस फंक्शन टू फाइंड द फर्स्ट n प्राइम्स. ठीक है. आपको पहले 1000 प्राइम नंबर्स चाहिए. सो हाउ वुड यू फाइंड दैट? या आपको किसी पर्टिकुलर रेंज में प्राइम नंबर्स को तलाश करना है. सो देन यू कैन यूज द व्हाइल लूप. ठीक है. आप इस प्राइम ये जो फंक्शन है इसको नंबर देते रहें और जब भी आपको एक प्राइम नंबर मिले तो आप प्राइम नंबर्स का एक काउंटर जो है उसको इंक्रीमेंट करें और उस लूप को आप तब तक चलाएं जब तक आपको n प्राइम्स नहीं मिल जाते. ठीक है. इससे पहले वाली लैब में मैंने आपको कहा था, यही काम करने का कहा था कि शायद वो यहाँ पे था ये. सो इसमें ये जो काम है ना, मॉडिफाई द स्क्रिप्ट टू प्रिंट द फर्स्ट 1000 प्राइम नंबर्स. नाउ दिस मे बी अ लिटिल डिफिकल्ट विद सिंपल फॉर लूप. होता तो डेफिनेटली है. कोई भी काम अगर आप व्हाइल लूप से कर सकते हैं वो फॉर लूप से भी कर सकते हैं, और जो फॉर लूप से कर सकते हैं वो व्हाइल लूप से कर सकते हैं. ठीक है. इन दोनों में कोई फर्क नहीं है, दोनों काम जो है ना वो कर सकते हैं. लेकिन बाज़ सिचुएशंस में फॉर लूप आसान होता है इस्तेमाल करना, बाज़ सिचुएशंस में व्हाइल लूप. जिन सिचुएशंस में आपको पता हो कि एक लूप ने कितनी मरतबा एग्जीक्यूट करना है उसमें फॉर लूप इज ईजी टू यूज. एंड देन देयर आर सिचुएशंस वेयर यू डोंट नो कि कितनी मरतबा आपने लूप को एग्जीक्यूट करवाना है, तो उन केसेस में फिर व्हाइल लूप इज अ लॉट ईजियर टू यूज. ठीक है.